Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Howie Heckman, one of the programmers here at PTS. Today I'm going to be walking you guys through kind of setting up giving you an overview of the TracerPlus software and how you can get up and running in minutes. Just downloading the free trials from our website, going through a sample session or project that we have available on our website, and deploying it to a mobile device. I'll be talking about some of the different features of the software, maybe touching on RFID and field validation and a lot of the different features of the application, deploying that to a mobile device and showing you how you can deploy to either a Windows-based device or now with our new TracerPlus 8.0 product, you can deploy to an Android tablet or Android device as well. So I'll be going through a little bit of that, showing you the different components of the software. I'll be doing that in a live demonstration. And then at the end of the webinar, before I get started here, I'd just like to mention that we will have a question and answer period. So anybody, as we're going through, if you have any questions, feel free to type them out in the question panel. I'll try to get to as many as possible. And as always, if I don't get to your question today, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be glad to answer whatever you may need. So with that, I'll jump into the demo here. I'm going to actually start by going to our new TracerPlus.com website and showing you how to download the different pieces of the software. So here I have in the web browser here, TracerPlus.com, and to get all of the software that you need for the application that we'll be configuring today, you can just click on the free trials link up at the top of TracerPlus.com. Okay. Now the TracerPlus software is really made up of three different components. There's the TracerPlus Desktop tool, which allows you to custom design mobile applications or mobile forms for these different handheld devices, and then deploy them to the second component of the software, which is TracerPlus, the mobile client. Okay, that's the application that actually runs on either an Android device or a Windows-based device and loads the forms that were designed within TracerPlus Desktop and allows the user to go out and do RFID scanning, barcode scanning, and things like that, maybe taking inspections and pictures and all that sort of stuff. The last piece of the software that I'm not going to get into today, but it's TracerPlus Connect. And TracerPlus Connect is the data syncing tool. So after you're done developing your mobile forms, you'll need a way to hook those up to a back-end database, maybe an Excel spreadsheet, or even just a text file. And that's where TracerPlus Connect comes in. That's the tool that allows you to marry up these mobile forms to, say, an Excel spreadsheet, and then move the data back and forth from that mobile device to the Excel spreadsheet. And that can either be done through a sync through the cradle, or if you have a Wi-Fi or a WAN, a cell phone type device, you can sync your data over the air to those back-end databases. But I won't be getting into that today. I'll be touching on actually designing and setting up your mobile applications and how you can deploy them to the mobile devices. Okay, so with that, the first thing really you want to do is download TracerPlus Desktop. So I have it downloaded here and installed, and I'm going to bring that application up here. Now there's two ways to get the mobile client installed on the device. The first is you can go to the website and download the mobile client installer using this link here and run through that installer, and it'll install it on the mobile device. Or within TracerPlus Desktop, up in the Tools menu, you'll see an Install TracerPlus 2 device link. And if you click that, it'll deploy it to the connected device, or install the application to the connected device. Just to touch on, with our new 8.0 release, we are supporting Android-based devices. And in order to install the mobile client on Android, you'll have to go on your Android device using your web browser. Go ahead and navigate to tracerplus.com/Android. And within the web browser on the mobile device, you just want to click this link here, and that'll install the TracerPlus mobile client on your Android device. And once you do that, you'll be able to deploy your mobile forms to the Android device from TracerPlus Desktop. Okay, so again, that's tracerplus.com/Android, and then click on this link here. You'll also want to fill out this form and download this version of TracerPlus Desktop if that's the case, and that'll install version 8, which I have installed here, so that you can deploy your mobile applications to that connected Android device. Okay. The last thing I did want to actually mention, when you're installing to the Android device, I have an Android emulator set up here. You want to make sure that in the settings area of the mobile device that you navigate to applications, and just make sure allow installation of non-market applications is checked. Without this checked, the web browser will block the TracerPlus installer from running on your Android device, you want to make sure this is turned on. Since the application isn't being deployed through the Android marketplace and it's being installed from our website here, you just need to make sure that that's turned on so that the operating system will allow the TracerPlus installer to run. Okay. So once you have all of that set up, you have TracerPlus Desktop installed, you have your choice of mobile client, either on the Android device or the Windows mobile-based device. You can start designing and deploying your applications. Excuse me. So I have here, this is actually a Windows-based device that I hooked up to my PC, and I do have the screen sharing on, so you can see the actual mobile device's screen here. And I have an application deployed to it already, and I'm actually going to go ahead and deploy a new one. But this is the TracerPlus mobile client running on a Windows-based device, not on an Android. And I have that hooked up to my PC here. So down below on TracerPlus Desktop, you can see I have a device connected. Okay. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and actually jump into TracerPlus Desktop. Now, this is the first screen you'll be presented with after installing TracerPlus Desktop. You'll see you'll have three main options to get started. You can create a new project, you can open an existing project, or you can go ahead and search our online samples, which has pre-built applications loaded on our website. And you can download those applications or projects and deploy them to your mobile device. So for those of you that are new to TracerPlus, I usually recommend this as a good starting point. So to do that, you just basically click on the Search Online Samples button. And this will actually go out to our website and load some our library of pre-built applications. So really, you can search for what you'd like to deploy to the device. So maybe you're looking for an asset tracking solution. Well, there's a whole bunch of asset tracking solutions already available, and they do offer a lot of pre-configured features of the software that you can kind of see how everything works. So it's always a good spot to go if you want to get started, if you want to learn the application. And you can kind of just take a look around, see if there's something here that maybe already fits what you need and what you want to configure for the mobile device. So here you can see I just navigated to an asset application that's pre-built, and this one's set up for RFID scanning. So you can actually pull the trigger on an RFID device if you have one available and start reading all of the tags in the location kind of all at once. You can just pull the trigger and read everything. But you can go ahead and kind of search around here for something that you may be looking for. We have a number of different inspection type applications, maybe for things like fire extinguisher inspections, different vehicle inspections, and things like that. So you can look around at the different things you need, and if you want to go ahead and then deploy and change those things, you can. So here, here's a trailer safety inspection, or here's a fire extinguisher inspection. Maybe I'll go ahead and download that just to show you how you can deploy this to the device. So here you see fire extinguisher inspection. Just click select. It'll show you what the application looks like and see one of the forms that have been designed. I'll go ahead and now just hit next to finish this import. Okay, it's going to download the application from our website, and then at the end of this, it'll open it up automatically within the TracerPlus desktop tool. Once it's open here, you see a description of the project, what the application looks like, and then you can finish the import. So now if I go ahead and click Finish, it should open up the application directly in our TracerPlus desktop tool. So from the website, you saw what the screenshots look like, and now within the TracerPlus desktop application, you can now go ahead and change everything or just deploy it as is. So if I actually click on one of these, like this check pressure form, you'll see that it's a pre-configured application with all of these fields of information about an extinguisher inspection. And if I click on the form designer, you'll see that now this form designer looks like what you just saw from the website. Okay, so you can kind of take a look at what this looks like here and maybe make changes if you need it. So if I wanted to, I can go ahead and kind of navigate around this application, change things around, maybe change images that are on the form, maybe add a company logo or something like that. If you needed to add additional fields that you'd like to include in the extinguisher inspection, you can go ahead and do that in the field settings here. I'm going to go into, just after this, kind of a description of how you configure all these field settings, but just to note that after you download an application from our Solution Center, you can go ahead and make changes to them and then deploy it to the device. Okay, so let's just say I want to go ahead and test this fire extinguisher inspection application. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy it to the connected mobile device. Now, again, you saw that I have this Windows device already connected, and it has a couple of forms that are already built in here for checking in equipment and checking out equipment. I'm going to go ahead and now deploy this new fire extinguisher application to that mobile device. So I'm just going to go up to the Tools menu here and hit Tools and Build Deploy. And that's going to bring up a deployment form so I can push this application or project to the connected device. By default, this one was built for a Windows mobile-based device. But if you wanted to at this point, if you were trialing the Android version of the application, you can go ahead and in the Select Platform drop-down, just switch it to Android. And now when you switch it to Android and you hit the Deploy button, it'll push it to the connected Android device as opposed to the connected Windows-based device. Okay, so I'm going to leave it as the Windows mobile version here. I'm going to go ahead and hit Deploy. That's going to close TracerPlus on the mobile device. And when the deployment is complete, it'll reopen the application with the new project. Okay, so here you can see now I deployed the application to our connected device. And just like in the tree within, or the Project Explorer within TracerPlus Desktop, you saw we had two forms configured, the check pressure and the extinguisher list. Now you can see those are available on the mobile device, and you can go ahead and take a look in them. So if I click on the check pressure form, you can see it looks just like what we have in TracerPlus Desktop. Okay, so you can already go ahead and start scanning extinguishers and performing these extinguisher inspections so that you can see how the mobile application will work. Maybe start barcode scanning immediately, or you can maybe upgrade this later on to like an RFID type application and add that if you need it. But it's a really quick way of kind of downloading a pre-built solution that we already have on our website and basically just hitting the Tools, Build, Deploy button and deploying it to the device to get up and running. You can see how the form works and all of that. So I usually recommend for anybody first starting with TracerPlus, or even someone that maybe wants to just have a starting point or something that's already built that they can modify, I recommend going to the Solution Center of TracerPlus Desktop on the Welcome screen. Just click Search Online Samples, and then go ahead and deploy the application. Again, you can change all of the settings within that project as you need them, and then deploy it to the mobile device with those new changes. So it's a really good starting point for all that. So now I'm going to actually go back and I'm going to go through some of the features of TracerPlus Desktop by creating a new project from scratch. So again, this one's all pre-built, but by going through one from scratch, I can show you the different features and maybe how you configure different things as you're setting up TracerPlus. So the first thing I'm going to do is go back to the Welcome screen, and here's where you saw that Create New Project button. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and I won't change my savings for the previous one, but now I start a new project basically from scratch. Okay, and when you do that, up in the tree here, you'll notice you don't have any forms yet available. So you need to add each form that you'd like to your project by clicking this Create Session. Again, a session is similar to a form. So for each form that you'd like to create for the mobile device, you basically create a new session for it. And that session contains both the form where the user's entering data, as well as a table storing all of the data that the mobile worker is collecting out in the field that you can later sync back to some back-end database or spreadsheet or something like that. So right now I created a new project. I thought today I'd just maybe make a quick and simple inventory application from scratch. So I'm just going to call it maybe inventory, name the project inventory. And then I'm going to go ahead and maybe add a couple of forms or a couple of sessions to this project. And I was going to do two. I'm going to do similar to that extinguisher application. I'm going to go ahead and maybe make a physical inventory form. So mobile worker can go out, scan items, and key in quantities. And then I'm going to make a session for actually containing, let's say, current inventory. A session that will contain the current inventory on the device so that every time someone goes out and does a physical inventory, it's pushing the updated information to the current inventory. And also that current inventory is going to kind of be a table or a database where it's going to contain all of the items in our inventory so we can look up descriptions and things like that as we're scanning items. So maybe you want to scan something and have it populate the description or maybe the previous quantity on the form so you can see that displayed and kind of be a visual verification of what you've scanned. Okay, so let me go back to the Project tab here for a second. So now you can see I have these two forms, the physical inventory and the current inventory. If I want to configure any global settings for our project, I can do that on the Project tab here, the Project Inventory tab. So up at the top, you'll see general settings for giving the project a name. You also have TracerPlus settings, which deal with different settings of the mobile device or the TracerPlus running on the handheld. So you can do things like changing the default OS platform that you're going to deploy this application to. So you can select from Windows Mobile or Android in that case. You can change your operating mode. There are two different versions of TracerPlus. There's a standard version and a professional version. Today I'll be configuring with the professional version here. But if you needed to change it, you can change that here. And then maybe the two most important settings here would be turning on and off either the barcode scanner or an RFID scanner. So by default, the barcode scanner is always enabled. You always have that barcode scanning ability within TracerPlus. You can go out, scan into the different fields on your form if you have a barcode-enabled device, and start collecting data that way. But let's say if you later on wanted to upgrade to an RFID scanner, you can turn on the RFID scanner here and then configure some settings for the RFID scanner, such as, say, the radio power or the EPC tag format. But you can configure that here and turn on the RFID scanner. And if you do that, if you have a supported RFID mobile device, now you'll be able to pull the trigger on the mobile device and start reading RFID tags. So you can quickly switch from, say, a barcode scanning application to an RFID scanning application. And now, if you build maybe a slightly different form, you can capture multiple tag bits on just a trigger pull. So maybe you're doing an asset tracking situation and you want to read all of the assets in a room. You could just pull that trigger and start reading those tags. Or maybe you wanted to set up your inventory, your physical inventory application with RFID, so you could just pull the trigger and read an entire shelf's worth of inventory. You could turn that on here. So you can easily just turn it on and off based on your situation, and if you wanted to trial maybe some of the new features of TracerPlus, but that you would do that here. Maybe one of the things on the database location here, if you leave it blank, it's default. But if you had an SD card and you wanted to store your data on the SD card, you can change the database, the TracerPlus database location here, so that the data that's stored on the mobile device would be written to the SD card as opposed to the mobile device's main memory. Okay, in the admin section here, you can set different passwords and things like that for TracerPlus. So you can password protect different settings on the mobile device, whether or not you're deleting or editing records. You can also set up user logins if you wanted to require your users to log into TracerPlus on the mobile device before they can start scanning and performing the different jobs in your project. You can turn on this require login here, and this way, when you first open the application, you're presented the login screen, and then later on you can capture that user login with your form data so that you know when somebody did a physical inventory, you know who did it, you know who did all those counts. The launcher settings here, you can turn on the main screen's tabs that are visible to the user. So by default, it's usually just a view data and data entry, but you can turn these on and off as you need them. So maybe you don't want your users going into the view data tab and viewing all of the records that have been scanned, so you can turn it off within these launcher settings. The last section here is the data integration area. And this is where you would be configuring how the mobile device is hooked up to your TracerPlus Connect install. So again, TracerPlus Connect is the tool that moves the data back and forth between the mobile device and, say, an Excel spreadsheet or an Oracle database table or something like that. Right in this data integration area is where you're configuring where that TracerPlus Connect install is running. So I won't go into too much detail here, but you basically just enter the PC name or IP address of the PC that's running TracerPlus Connect, and then you'll be able to do like a Wi-Fi sync or something like that from the mobile device. You can also then set up things like sync timers, so that maybe every once in a while the mobile device will hook up to TracerPlus Connect and perform a synchronization to move that data back and forth. Maybe you only want to do that once a day. You know, once a day at 8 o'clock, the handheld will connect up with TracerPlus Connect, sync the data back and forth, and then close that connection, and now you have up-to-date data on the mobile device. But all of that configuration would be done here within these data integration options. Okay, so now I'm going to actually jump over to configuring the forms, the different forms that we have in our project. Okay, so the first one I'll do maybe is this current inventory, because this is where we're going to store all of the inventory on the handheld. This is where we have a big list of the different items, descriptions, and maybe the current quantities that we have in our database. So what you do is you select this session up on the top of the current inventory session, and you have two main areas, or actually three main areas where you're configuring this session. You have the session settings on the top, which are global settings for this form or session. Then down below you have the field settings and the form designer. Okay, so the field settings are all of the different fields that you'll be collecting on the mobile device. So in the case of a physical inventory, it could be something as simple as the barcode, maybe a description and quantity. So you would add those fields of information to your session in the field setting. Usually the last thing then you configure within the session is the form itself and what it looks like. So if you jump over to the form designer, this is where you're kind of going to lay out how it looks, add different colors, company logos, and things like that. And you can start by usually hitting this Create Default. And the Create Default will build the form automatically for you based on the field settings that you have. So right now we have 10 default fields that haven't been configured really to do anything. And if I jumped to the form designer, that form is now set up and built based off of your field settings. Okay, so now I'm going to actually go back to the field settings to start configuring some of these fields. So let's say the first field here is maybe the item number, the barcode value that we're going to be scanning. Maybe we'll want a description, a current quantity, and maybe something like, I don't know, a last count date, something like that. So you're basically just adding the different fields of information that you'd like within this session or within this form, and then removing the ones you're not using. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those bottom fields there. Okay. So now here you can see this session. I have these couple of fields added to the application. If I jump back over to the form designer now, you'll see the ones that I deleted were removed, and I can go ahead and hit the Set to Default button, which basically does what I answered yes to before, or building the form based on our field settings. So you can see it built the form based off of those field settings. So I have item number, description, current quantity, and last count date. Now, if I were to deploy this to the device right now, this is what the form would look like for the current inventory application. But I can go ahead now, just drag and drop environment, just kind of move these things around, make it look, nicer. Maybe you want to add a company logo up on the top, something like that. Maybe you want to change the background colors. You can have complete control over what this form looks like. Maybe just to touch on, if you wanted to deploy this to, say, an Android tablet, so you have much more screen real estate, you can go ahead and change in the form properties area here the dimensions of the screen. So let's say it's 720 by 400 or something like that. Okay, you can change the screen size here so that you have more real estate and to add different controls to the form. And if I were to go ahead again and hit Reset to Default, it'll actually be a little bit smart about how it builds this default form, and that it'll increase the font size and the width of the control, so it'll use up all this space that we just added. So you can kind of design this to fit the type of mobile device you're deploying this to. And again, a tablet's going to be much larger than maybe one of these Windows-based barcode scanners. You may even have an Android device that has the same resolution as a Windows-based device. Okay, but you can kind of change all of that here. So I'm going to actually bump this back down to the defaults, just so it doesn't overrun my screen, and reset this to defaults. Okay, so I'll just move that back. Okay, so now I have my form built for the current inventory. Again, you have a lot of control over how this looks, so maybe we'll just clean it up slightly. I'm going to make the widths the same on the fields, maybe line their left, just to get everything lined up there. You can change all the font colors, the buttons, and all that sort of stuff if you wanted to. But you can go ahead and kind of play with that as you need it. Okay, I'm going to go back in now over to the physical inventory form, and I'm going to actually set up the form that someone's using to do the physical inventory. They're going to be scanning items. It's going to be similar to the current inventory, but it'll add existing or the new quantities that they're keying in to the current inventory. So let's say as they're scanning items, it's posting the new counts to that current inventory and keeping a running total of everything. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start naming my fields here. I'm going to do an item number again. I'm going to do the description. Let's say the previous quantity. Okay, that's what it's going to be pulling from the current inventory. Let's say a new count, something a user key in for how many items they want to count. And then let's go maybe make a field for total quantity. The reason I'm doing this is this previous count, I'm going to have that value looked up from the current inventory. So when they scan the item number, it's going to say, okay, well, let me look into the current inventory, see what already exists. Then this new count is going to present the user with a field that they can key in a new count. So maybe they find five additional items, and they want to add that to the current inventory. And I'm going to do that using this total quantity field. Okay. Then maybe a date timestamp for the when this inventory was done. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and remove some of these other fields here. I think that's all I want to add for now. And then this is when you start configuring what these fields do. So once you have all the fields you like on your form, you can go ahead and start configuring what those fields do. So for instance, this date time field, maybe I want to make that read-only so a user can't change it. I'll go ahead and make it read-only here. I want to change the data type of that field to be a date time so that the field is automatically populated with the date time when the user opens the form and begins their inventory. Once you do that, you can change the format of the date time. So if you didn't want just month, day, year, you wanted something else, you can do that using the date formatting tool. For the description, since this is a physical inventory and I want the user just to be able to scan an item, maybe view the description and key in the quantity, the description I don't want them to enter. So unlike this current inventory session where the description is just a text field, I want this description field to be automatically populated with the description when the user scans the item. So to do that, for the description field, I want to turn on the lookup feature, this lookup options feature for that field. So I'm just going to enable it. And now I need to define where the description is coming from and what's causing that description to be retrieved. Okay, so the description is going to be coming from the current inventory. It's going to be coming from the session that's going to contain all of the inventory in our database. Okay, and then the next thing I need to do is just configure how it's going to find that the exact item that we want from our current inventory. So to do that, I set up what's called a relationship here between the two sessions. So the relationship is going to be very simple. It's just going to be this item number field, and we're going to match it to the item number field in the current inventory. Basically, that's what all it's telling it to do is when the user scans an item number in our current session, this local field, match it to a item number in the remote session, in the current inventory session, and that's how we're going to find a match. So once that item number 123 is found in that remote session, we then define down here what we want to display if that item is found. So for the lookup result display value here, I'm going to set the source field to be the description. That's just telling it that if this item is found based on matching it from our current physical inventory form to the current inventory form, go ahead and display the description field in this description field in the local session. You could also do something like return a static value, maybe if you wanted to do something like just display item found. A lot of people want to do that just to validate items in the database, so when they scan something, just display something on the form that says, yes, this is a valid item. But for our case, we actually want to display the description. And down below that, you can put some custom stuff if the item's not found. So if you scan an item, it's not in your database, you can have the field populated with something maybe like item not found. Okay, just so the user has something on the form displayed to them to notify them that this item wasn't found. Otherwise, it would just be a blank field, and they may not know what happened there. And they may be wondering why they need to look for this item, or why this item didn't populate on the form. Okay, so that's all we're going to do for this lookup here. It's just going to display our description. Something I may want to do for description again is make it read-only. You know, you don't want the user while they're doing a physical inventory to start changing the description of your items. So I'll make that one read-only. The previous quantity, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make this one a lookup. I'm going to make it a lookup into the current inventory. It's going to be found by matching up the item numbers. And then the source field, in this case, I'm going to make the current quantity. So in this case, when you scan an item, it's going to look into the database and find that current quantity that's in the database. Okay. And again, this one I may want to make it read-only. For the new count, the only thing I want to do for the new count, this is what the user is actually going to be keying in some quantity. I'm just going to make that a number field, just to make that field forced to be numeric, and it does, won't accept ABC as a count. And the last field that I want to configure here with the lookup options is total quantity. The total quantity is going to be the previous quantity plus the new count, and I want to push that back to our current inventory so that it updates the current inventory with this new count. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and make this field a calculated field. Okay, so in the field type dropdown, I'm going to change it to calculated. Now, just to mention, there are a number of different field types you can change here. You have things such as a dropdown. So if you wanted to add a dropdown to your form, maybe something for like a location, maybe you have a couple locations, you would configure that to be a dropdown. If you want a checkbox field on your form, you can change it to a checkbox. The variable field allows you to do different pre-populated values like an auto number or an increment, or maybe the current logged in user. That would be done through this variable field type. If you wanted to capture a signature on your mobile form, you would just add a signature field to your form and change its field type to be signature. The calculated field allows you to do a couple different mathematical operations on a field. And an image, if you have a device that has a camera available, that'll allow you to take a picture using your mobile form. This will actually change the field on the form. Instead of it being like a text box or a drop-down or something like that, it turns it into a button. So if you click it, it'll bring up the camera dialog so you can take a picture. So that's useful for things like inspections. So maybe you go out and do an inspection and you want to take a picture of damage or something like that. You can add an image field to your form. Okay. For this example here, I'm going to go ahead and change it to calculated. And typically when you change the field type, you'll see an additional tab up here, and that's where you configure that field type. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to our calculated options tab, and I'm going to go ahead and leave the function as add, but if you needed some other function here, you can change that as well. So there's different operations here. You can do subtraction, multiplication, and division. You can do a mod operation, min-max. You can parse data using the left, mid, and right functions. That's useful if you want to separate values, saying within a barcode. This is an example. If you wanted to pull out maybe like a first and a last name from a driver's license barcode, you can configure that using these left, mid, and right functions. So if you scan the back of a driver's license and you want to display in a first name and last name field, the first name and last name coming from that barcode, you would want to configure that using these parsing functions for left, mid, and right. The last three options here, you can change a field to be to capturing GPS coordinates. If you wanted to make a latitude, longitude, or even an altitude field, you would just turn that function on for the field in the calculated options. So you can capture the current coordinates of that mobile device. And in some cases, maybe you want to make something like that not visible. The user doesn't know that there's the latitude and longitude is being captured when they're doing an inspection or something like that. You can capture those coordinates and submit that with the data. So for this example here, I'm going to go ahead and select Add, and then just down below it, I need to configure the Add function. What I'm going to do is just select the previous quantity and insert that into our function, and select the new count and insert that into the function. So what that does is when the user keys in the new count, it adds it to the previous quantity, and that's what value will be displayed in the total quantity field. Okay, so that's all I really need to configure for that. The last thing I do want to make this total quantity a number. If you leave it as general, you can do things like string concatenation, where you can add strings together. So if you had one field that had A, B, C, and another field that had D, E, F, if you did an add on those, you'd have A, B, C, D, E, F displayed in the field. So I just want to make sure that's a number so that it goes ahead and does the addition function on the numerical values. Okay. And one last thing I need to do for this field. Now, this I configured to do the addition of the previous quantity to the new quantity. I also want to push that back to our current inventory so it's updated with that new data. So to do that, I need to configure the lookups again. And the lookups had two additional features there, if you notice, for update, source, and append if not found. What I want to do is actually configure a lookup, just like we did before, matching item numbers. The source field, again, is going to be the current quantity. And for this one, since it's updated with a new value that a user keyed in, I want to click Update Source so that when the value is calculated and I submit this data, save this data from the form, it'll update our current inventory with that new value. So now the next time you scan the item, this previous quantity, you'll see that new information displayed to the user. Okay, for not found value for this one, maybe I'll do like a 0 or something. If it's not found, we don't have any of them. So now I configured most of the fields that I'd like to set up for this application. The next thing I'll kind of touch on the different features of the field settings because they are pretty important in how a user interacts with the forms that you have on the mobile device. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to go back to the item number field. And to the right here, you'll see some additional fields such as after scan and validation. After scan is important in that it allows you to control the flow of data entry on your form and really will help you limit the number of times the user has to touch the screen. So for instance, in our case here, we want to scan an item number and really just have the user key in a quantity. We don't want them to have to scan the item number and then maybe tap into the quantity field and then hit the submit button or to save the data. We want to kind of smooth that out so there's as least or fewest number of user interactions with the mobile device, and they can really move along quickly with their work. So what I'm going to do is the item number, I want to jump the cursor immediately down to the new count field. But after they scan this, the cursor is immediately in the new count field, and maybe they have a numeric, physical numeric keypad on the device. They can just key in a count. After they key in a count, I really only want them to go back and scan the next item. So on the new count field, I want to change the go-to field to be the item number. So that means after they key in that count and maybe hit the enter key, it'll jump that cursor back up to the item number ready for the next scan. What I also want to configure for that is an auto submit. And an auto submit will allow the user, once they hit enter, it saves that record. So it saves that new information to the TracerPlus database. So they don't have to press anything on the form. They don't have to hit the save button or submit button. They can just key in a quantity, hit enter, it saves that data, and they're ready to scan the next item. Some of the other options you have here, you have clear on submit. I'm going to leave this on for most of these, all of these. Clear on submit allows you to control when the field is cleared when the data is saved. So many people will turn this off for something like a location field. So let's say they were doing an inventory of a particular location. If you turn off clear on submit for location, every time they key in a count and hit save that information, the location field will remain with the previously entered value. So you don't have to have the user constantly entering a location for every item that they're inventorying. All right, so that's where you may turn off clear on submit. You also have another one, the auto find and scan. This would allow you to, when you scan into a field, if I had auto find on scan set for the item number, it's going to look in our current session to try to find a matching item number, and if it does, it brings it up in an edit state. So to bring that form, all the information about that item on the form in an edit state. That's probably another way you could set up the physical inventory here. But it's sometimes better to do it the lookup so that you have kind of a physical inventory session, which is keeping a log of all of the items that someone has keyed in, and then the current inventory is maintaining a list of what you have in inventory. On the validation tab here, this allows you to validate data so that you're not submitting kind of unexpected data to your database. So for instance, the item number, every time we're doing a physical inventory, we need that item number in the row or in that record. We don't want people to be able to just submit data with no item number. So what you can do here is on the validation tab, set a min length value. Right now it defaults to 00, which then it doesn't check. If my item numbers were always, say, at least 5 characters long, I would just put a 5 here. And this forces the user to scan or enter something of at least 5 characters long in order for this form to allow it to save that data. When you do that, you have other options for setting like custom validation error messages. So you can just be nice and say, please enter an item number so that the user knows exactly what happened. You can also do things like save this value to a field so that if you do allow people to submit bad data, you can save kind of a record of what happened so that later on you can see why that data was saved and why it was wrong. You can also do something new in 8.0 is setting a custom error sound. So a lot of people have fun with this. They'll turn on like the Pac-Man dying sound if they did something wrong on the form, or Homer Simpson or something like that. You can select those WAV files here. Okay, but you have control over different validation settings. You can validate maybe a barcode type, force the user to scan a barcode, don't allow them to key things in, things like that. I may want to do something like on the new count. I'm going to make, I could set a min maybe value of 1. Maybe we don't want them to submit a record with 0 or something like that. You could set that validation as well. Okay, so if I have everything set correctly here, I'm going to go ahead now and jump over to the form designer so I can configure my physical inventory form. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create default. So it builds that based on our settings there. Let's maybe change the caption of this inventory. Now this is the form that most people will be using out in the field to do their physical inventory. So you may want to make it look a little bit nicer than the current inventory. This one may not be used as much. I'll go ahead and maybe change the background color of this as well. I will maybe line up all of these fields like we did before. So I am going to make the width the same and then line up to the left. But you really have control over all of what this looks like. Maybe you want the submit button a different color. Let's go ahead and pick something here. But you can kind of play with what this looks like. Maybe submit button's red because you're saving that and writing that data to your database. A lot of people will put their company logo again on here. You can do that using the image button over here. Another feature that I would like to just mention, briefly touch on here, you can add a grid control to your form. And the grid control will allow you to display multiple items on your form. So what you could do actually with this is you could put, in this grid, you could put something like set the source of it to be your current inventory. Maybe we'll add a field here. Call it description. We'll just do 1 column. Make the width of the column wider. Describe what this does in a second. I'll set the source field to be the description. So this grid control right now, I set its source section to be the current inventory, and I added 1 column called description. And what that'll do is, when you open up this form, this will be populated with all of the inventory in your database. And that's useful for things like if maybe a barcode's missing on an item, you can kind of search for it in the grid and pick it from this grid control. And you can hook this grid control up to the different fields on your form. So when the user selects an item from this grid, you can have that item populated in any one of these fields down below. So it's a useful way of allowing a user to scroll through existing inventory, pick something, and have the form filled out. It can also be used in another way if you're doing some type of package tracking where you want, delivery tracking where you want them to scan packages and then collect the signature at the end. You can use this in a cached mode where as you scan packages, so let's say you had 5 packages to scan, you can have all of those packages added to the grid control and then maybe collect 1 signature for that package. And when you hit the submit button, all of the items in this grid will be submitted to the database with that 1 signature. So it can be used in 2 different ways, being a non-cache mode where you can scroll through inventory that you already have or items that you already have on handheld, and in a cache mode where you can add items to it from your form so that you can submit all those items at once and save all those items at once. And just to elaborate on that a little bit more, a very useful feature for that cached mode is for RFID scanning. That allows you to, again, like the package tracking application where you were able to add 5 packages, say, to that 1 grid control. If you're using the grid control for an RFID tag, that allows you then to pull the trigger once. This grid control will be filled out with all the tags that are read. And in the case of maybe an inventory where maybe you have hundreds or even thousands of items, that grid control will be populated with all of those items as you scan them very quickly. And then at the end, when you're all done with your inventory, you hit the submit button, and all of that inventory from the RFID scanner will be submitted to your database. So it gives you a very quick way with the RFID scanning of scanning multiple items and saving all of that data at the end and capturing all that inventory without actually having to go item by item, scanning in all of those item numbers and quantities. Okay, so that's a useful feature on the form designer, just something I'd like to mention. There are a lot of features of the grid control that you can use to kind of build powerful forms for your mobile device. Okay, so I think I'm all done here with my form. I'm going to go ahead and deploy this to the mobile device. But before I do that, I just want to mention the session settings because I didn't really go into that too much here. The session settings up above allow you to define global settings for this form, for this session. All right, so you have different things here like exporting of data. Now, if you weren't using TracerPlus, you can still export text files. You can export XML files or CSV files or things like that. To configure that, you would use the export options for your session settings. So as you're doing your physical inventory, if you wanted to do some type of like CSV file, so you do a comma delimited file or something like that, you would configure that up here so that when you do a file export on the mobile device, it creates that text file, and it will include the fields and different settings you have set up here. I'll skip over the wireless settings for now, but I'm going to jump into the printer settings. The printer settings, you can print from TracerPlus, and you can create custom formats. So you can print different receipts or labels or things like that to a Bluetooth or a wireless LAN mobile printer. To do that, you would configure the printer settings up here. So maybe in the case of like a price relabeling or sale labeling or something like that, you can fill out the information on your form and hit print, and it'll print that data to a mobile device. You can also send email or text messages from your form. So you could actually make just a simple text messaging form if you wanted within TracerPlus. You could also turn on an email report so that when somebody finishes, say, a physical inventory, some type of email is generated and sent to a selected user email address so that they can review maybe that physical inventory as it was completed. The record submit options allow you to control how data is submitted to the TracerPlus database. By default, they're always just appended. So every time you do a physical inventory, it appends new information to the bottom or new records to the bottom of that table. You can also update existing records upon submitting. So if you wanted to, instead of appending a new record, you wanted to update based on this item number, you could do that. So that is almost another way that you could do a physical inventory. You could scan an item, key in a quantity that you counted, and if you had update existing set here, when you submit that data, it's going to try to find that item number in the database and update that row with the new information. So that may be another way that you could try to do this physical inventory using these update options. I'm going to leave it as a pen for my setup here. The last section here is the smart form. This allows you to do things like controlling how data is inserted into the fields on your form. One common use for this is something like RFID scanning. So here you can see RFID read complete. When the user pulls the trigger to read RFID tags, you usually always want those RFID tags to be into the same field on the form. So to do that, you would use the smart form, and you'd go RFID read complete, and then select the destination field where that tag data is being entered when tags are read. So you say, for instance, the user accidentally puts the cursor in the date time field. By default, if you pulled the trigger to read an RFID tag, it'll put that RFID tag in the date time field, as long as it's not read-only. But by turning on this smart form feature here, it will make sure that every RFID tag is placed in the item number field, no matter where the focus is on the form. So even if you have the focus up in this grid control, it's going to put that data in the item number field. You can do the same thing with barcode scanning, and you can also do this different rules here that allow you to force data into a particular field, maybe based on what the data begins with. So if you have a barcode that starts with a P, and that's always a part number, you can force that barcode into the part number field. If you have a barcode that starts with a Q, and that's like a quantity barcode, you scan that Q barcode, it'll force that data following the Q into the quantity field. So in that case, the user doesn't have to interact with the form. He's just scanning barcodes. You scan, scan, scan. It's always putting that data into the correct field. So that's all configured within the smart form rules here. I'm going to remove that one for my case. Okay, so that's kind of all of a brief touch on all of the different features here built into our application today. Once you're all done configuring everything, the last thing you need to do is just go up to the tools and build deploy. So just like before when we deployed our pre-built application to the mobile device, now we built an application from scratch. We pick which platform we want to deploy it to. In my case, it's Windows Mobile. Let me open up the handheld so you can see. Again, we had the fire extinguisher inspection on the application before. Now if I hit deploy, it's going to overwrite the project that's on the handheld with our new project, our new inventory application. Okay, so it goes through a little deployment process there. Again, once it's done, it opens up the application. Now you can see the two sessions that we've configured in TracerPlus Desktop here, physical inventory and current inventory. You have all of that information available. If you were to jump in any one of these applications, you see I have some bad data there. So I'm going to go back over to session 2 and just delete the data available in session 2. Okay, I'm going to add an item to our inventory. So let's just say it's item 100. It's got a description 100. I don't know really what to call it. It had a previous quantity of 10. I'll leave the last count date blank. I didn't actually configure that one. But I'll go ahead and hit submit. That saves it to our database. You can see that went up by 1. I'm going to make maybe a item of 200 with a description 200, a previous quantity of 25, and I'll save that one to our database as well. Okay, so now we have 2 items in our database. If I wanted to see those 2 items, I can jump to the view data of the current inventory. You can see our 2 items in our database. Typically, this current inventory would be populated from something. So you can see I just keyed those in from the handheld itself, but you typically want to sync that using TracerPlus Connect. So you already have an inventory table or an inventory spreadsheet or something like that. You would want to push that over to the handheld using TracerPlus Connect. Okay. If I go back to our data entry for the physical inventory and I open this up, you'll see that I have the different items that are available in the database here. If I key in one of these items, so let's say I hit key in 200 and hit the enter key, it looks up the information about that item. So you can see here's the description. Looks like I might have picked the wrong description field there. You can see the previous quantity was 25. The total quantity is 25 because I haven't keyed anything in yet. If I hit, please enter an item number. Oh, it's got to be at least 5 characters long. So let me actually go back so you can see our validation working. I'm going to go back to our current inventory. Let me edit these. I need to have these of at least 5 characters. 10,000. I'll submit that. Okay, I'm going to go back to the item 200. I'll edit this one. I'm going to make this one 20,000. Okay. Now these would, again, usually be barcodes or something like that populated from your database. Now if I go back to our data entry, okay, I'm going to go ahead and key in, say, 20,000 this time. Hit enter. It looks up our previous quantity. The total quantity is still 25, but if I key in an additional amount and hit enter, you can see it goes to 35 and submits that data, and now I'm ready to key in the next item. If I were to key in 20,000 again, it looks up now the new previous quantity, which is 35, and I can go ahead and add an additional, say, 5 to that. It goes to 40 and so on. So as I scan these items around my warehouse or around my store, I can add items to it as I find them, and it's keeping that count in our inventory. If I key in the 10,000, that one had a quantity of 10, and again, I must have picked the wrong source field there. But if I key in the 10,000, now I have that had a quantity of 10. I can go ahead and maybe key in 5, hit enter. It goes back up to the item number. Now this would probably be done. See, I'm doing this through this little screen share here. But if I were to scan barcodes in this field here, once I scan the barcode, it immediately drop the cursor down to the new count, where I can then maybe use the keypad on the device to key in a quantity and just hit enter. So it's a really simple application for keeping track of inventory. Okay. So I think that's all that I wanted to do today to show you how to get up and running with TracerPlus and TracerPlus Desktop. I hope you guys have got some useful information out of this application here. I tried to touch on a lot of the different features of the software so that you can get up and running, maybe modifying things that we have on our website or modifying applications that you maybe already have built.